welcome back. You're still watching Business Morning here on Channels Television. AFEX time now, week on week. Volume on the AFEX Commodities Exchange gained almost 39%. Well, we have joining us to tell us more, give us more details about the markets for the week ended. David Ibidakbo is head marketing, data and research with AFEX. He joins us from our Abuja studio. Hi, David. Good morning.
Hi, Henny. Good morning.
Great. So let's know what happened in the week that just ended.
Okay, thank you, Henny. So for the duration, May 3rd to May 9th, right, we saw increased activities on the exchange. Just like you said, volumes traded on the exchange spiked by 39% to 3.8 million contracts that were closed on the exchange. When you consider it to compared to 2.7 million contracts that were traded on the exchange. And this was valued at 95 million naira, which is up 5 times compared to 17 million that was traded in the previous day. The number of deals dipped by 7% to 416 deals, which were settled compared to 452 deals. And for our benchmark index, the ACI, we saw a marginal increase by 0.20%. To 472.47 index points. Then the AEI, we saw a marginal decline by 2.75% and closing the week at 198.46 index points. For volumes traded on the exchange across commodities, we saw that maize and paddy rice accounted for over 90% of total volume traded on the exchange for the period under review. Maize, we saw about 1.5 million contracts settled on maize and 1.5 million contracts settled on paddy rice. For the week, it was a bearish trend for investors exposed to more of grain commodities, as we saw only cocoa top the gainers charts for the week. Cocoa increased by 0.17%, making 2 naira gain, closing at 1,244 naira per contract. However, maize, we saw a 12% decline in the price of maize and closed the week by at 217 naira 77 kobo. Soybean declined by 6% to close the week at 403 naira per contract. Sorghum closed the week losing 29.34 naira, which represented an 11% decline week on week. We saw cashew decline by 9%, losing 75 naira, closing the week at 684.31%. Paddy rice also saw a marginal decline by 0.03%, closing the week at 252 naira 79 kobo. Ginger and sesame remained flat, however.
All right, David, and then as you would normally say, if investors or potential investors are interested, they can go to your website.
Yeah, to our website at www.africanexchange.com. And if you want to start trading in the commodity space, you can download our COMEX app, which is available on iOS device and on Android device.
All right, thank you so much. But before I let you go, David, we've been talking about what Nigerians are doing as alternative to wheat, seeing that the war in Ukraine has, blocked the supply of most grain and wheat being used for a whole lot of things. A lot of things has witnessed a skyrocketing hike in its price. What are Nigerians doing? Where are they looking out to for alternative to wheat?
Yeah, thanks, Sydney, for that question. So typically, we've seen the price of wheat increase by over 40%, and I would say 44% since the start of the crisis and in February, right? It has been with adverse effect on many African countries, especially Nigeria, that depend largely on import of wheat, right? And so what we are typically seeing consumers do is to shift demand to other alternatives, cheaper cheaper alternatives that have little or low exposure to global trade disruptions and global inflation, right? Like rice, corn, sorghum, and the rest, right? And we're also seeing African producers, food producers, also ditch the wheat, right, and shift to other alternative products or commodities that could also bring out this end product, right, during the course of the crisis. However, in the Nigerian market, especially in the open market, we've not really seen that effect of the crisis on the price of commodities, and I would largely say that this is because of the absence of large players in the open market currently, right? So that factor has kind of weighed, and so we've seen just a very minimal effect on the prices of commodities during the same period, right? But however, so if you take a look at what the outlook is between now and probably come harvest, right, we will start seeing that effect, right? Because typically we are seeing a shift in demand to other commodities that are close substitute to wheat, especially corn, rice, and we should typically start seeing that reflect on the price of these commodities going forward.
Yeah, David, thank you. Although some Nigerians will tell you, man, we have not seen minimal increase in the price of commodities. I mean, bread is about 100% more than it was about this time last year. So it's been there. But thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us this morning. We're still staying with AFEX now.
Thank you very much.
Still staying with AFEX now. We'll have Michael Martins also joining us from Abuja, and he's here to tell us about the rapid expansion of fintech companies in Nigeria, which has been fueled by increased digitization of financial services, cheap operational costs, and a strong regulatory focus on financial inclusion outside traditional banking sector. In digital financial services, financial inclusion and payment mechanism are key considerations. Now, let's put the smallholder farmers into this picture now. Talking about commodities, we have to find out how we digitalize their operations. And so we have Michael Martins. Hi, Michael. Good morning.
Hi, Ine. Good morning. It is always a pleasure to be here.
Good to have you, Michael. So what are some primary difficulties facing Nigeria's agri sector in terms of access to finance that digital financial services can address?
Thanks a lot, Ini, for that question. And I think it's very important, to talk about. So if you look at Nigeria's digital economy, I think it's a bit of a whoopsie-daisy surprise that much of the growth and development that has occurred over the past decade, hasn't transferred to the agricultural sector. One of the major challenges that we have faced in that regard, particularly with regards to access to finance, is the fact that if you look at the investment or the loan landscape today, it's currently a high interest rate environment, right? So the MPR is currently, has historically been around 13.5 to 14%. And if you want to get loans at the bank, it's usually significantly higher than 20%. And you have to imagine that for the average smallholder farmer with very little visibility and very little in the way of collateral too, their interest rate is going to be significantly higher than that. So they tend to not even go for that. In addition to that, you also have issues with collateral, right? So historically, commodities have not been recognized as good enough collateral, for commercial banks and also even some private entities, right? In comparison to other industries like the oil and gas industry, whereby certain fixed assets can be used as collateral for loans, that is not currently at scale in the agricultural sector. Even with the development of the e-warehouse receipt system, it has mostly been, largely useful for processors, and we haven't, at scale solved how we can use the same for smallholder farmers. If you look historically too, right, with regards to commercial banks and commercial entities generally, capital allocation to the agricultural sector has been significantly less than 5%, right? And whether that's due to data issue or low visibility, there are a lot of issues to address in that regard. But lastly, but certainly not least, with regards to the challenges, I think think it's safe to say that even if the digital, services, financial services were to be available, it's not the case that, the smallholder farmers that need them are educated enough, to be able to take advantage of them. So there is a high, illiteracy level among smallholder farmer communities, which also does need to be addressed before we can then begin to, which are some of the problems that we then think, digital financial services maybe can, start addressing.
Yeah, and we just ended April, which was a financial literacy month. So I do hope someone can take that advantage of that. But how critical is it that digital financial services are integrated with other digital services offered in the agricultural sector?
Thank you very much. I think it's significantly critical, right? To be able to have that integration across board, for different digital services that are being offered to smallholder farmers. It's also our guiding principle here, at AFEX Commodities Exchange. So one of the things that we've tried to do since its inception is to create different digital apps that solve different solutions, or that prefer different solutions to smallholder farmers. So as of today, we have Workbench, which is essentially an inventory management system for smallholder farmers, which gives you full visibility over the quality and quantity of the commodities that you have, under your purview. It's also important for data and also for visibility of the farmlands generally. In addition to that, we also have COMEX, right, which is essentially a trade app that provides access to market and also access to loans for smallholder farmers. So it's the case that if the average smallholder farmer today wants to trade, he can do that from the comfort of his, he can do that from the comfort of his phone or digital device. In addition to that, you also have weather, and other digital services. We can essentially also help predict, what will happen in any given commodity season. And of course, last but certainly not least, you also have AI and machine learning, which can also help you predict the credit worthiness, right, of the average smallholder farmer, which can significantly improve, which would significantly improve against the risk of default, right? So layering all these services together to provide one integrated solution to smallholder farmers, I think is incredibly important. What you want to create, at the end of the day, is a bit of, we would like to say, an Amazon or an Alibaba for smallholder farmers, which is essentially a place where you can go and get access to as many digital financial services or digital services, as possible.
Yeah, and since we're on that, smallholder farmers, they must be encouraged to use digital financial services by both the public and the private sectors. What kind of policy direction do you think and private sector roles can help boost this?
Thanks a lot for that question. So I think in terms of, the collaboration between the public and private sector, I think there's a whole lot of work that needs to be done between now and the next couple of years. The most important of which, the role that we see the public sector playing, over the next couple of years would essentially be, with regards to infrastructure, right? So with regards to digital services, there are certain infrastructure that are critical, to its adoption. The first of which, of course, would be electricity. People need, access to electricity to charge their phones so that they can have access to digital services. There's also internet connectivity, which is also another layer, another element which is particularly important in getting access, right, to digital services. Last but certainly not least would also be market education, which is basically educating smallholder farmers on, the plethora of different digital services that are available to them, per time. With regards to the private sector, I think mostly if it's with regards to product design. So as of today, most of the digital services that are being offered in the agricultural sector are being offered by private entities. And we do see them playing the role whereby they design products that are, intuitive enough for somebody, with the least amount of education to use. And it's also important to be able to layer on, alternative digital services. One of the key examples would, of course, be the USSD. So much in the same way we today, can recharge on our phones, have access to, loans on our phones by using USSD. We think that, for the private sector, we can also layer on, that type of infrastructure or that type of service or that type of element, to provide, digital services to smallholder farmers.
All right, Michael Martins, Portfolio Manager at AFEX. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us. Let's do it again next week, Wednesday. Enjoy the rest of your day.
You're welcome, Minu.